everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to make something very quick and easy, but very unique, but also something we make all the time, and it's super useful. Today, we're going to make the Densa Dopp kit, and this comes to us from Country Cow. So this little cutie patootie is a boxy bag, guys. You know how much I love a boxy bag. Boxy bags are probably... they're my favorite item to make, honestly, because they are easy and they are quick, and there's lots of ways to create really unique designs with it, and this is definitely one of them. The way you put this together, this together is just great, honestly. I absolutely love this pattern, and I love the way that it comes together, and I love the uniqueness of this, like, the two pieces of fabric that wrap around each other all the way around the bag. I just think that looks so cool. So this is the small size. There are two sizes, small and large. This is the small size, and in today's tutorial, we're gonna make the large one because I really wanna see the difference between them. A lot of times when there are multiple sizes, sometimes the difference is not that different, and sometimes it's very different. So I'm interested to see how that works. I love pouches like this for travel and organization. I have things like this all over my sewing room. I have them all over my bathroom, and when we have a suitcase, they're all in my suitcase. And I make them and I buy them too. Honestly, if somebody else is selling one that I think is just great, I will purchase it. And so here is the inside. You see nothing fancy, no big zippers or anything like that. So if you're a beginner sewer, like just starting out, this is gonna be a great project for you, because it is so basic and so simple, but you're gonna learn a lot of the fundamentals, like boxing. Boxing is a technique that is simple, but the math is hard to wrap your head around. So a lot of times when we want to adjust a pattern ourselves and there's a box corner, it's like, how do I know how to figure out the math for that? This type of practice is going to help you with that. So thank you so much to Country Cow for allowing us to use your patterns on our channel. Country Cow patterns are amazing. They are some of the most unique designs out there. So go check out the website. Leave a list down below. I have a list. They have the most amazing big bags with a lot going on. And I'm going to be doing one of those over the summer for sure. I just haven't picked which one. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shout-outs, leave them down in the comment section below. Like I said, any other patterns from Country Cow, leave them down in the comment section. Go ahead and check the OklaRoots YouTube channel where we have playlists, and we do have a Country Cow playlist where we've got the other tutorials from them over there. All right, guys, let's get started. So for the large size, you're gonna need about 2/3 a yard of exterior material and 2/3 a yard of lining material. From the exterior material, I'm going to use two different pieces. I'm going to use one piece that's a wax canvas and another one that's a nylon. This is a bonded nylon. It has like a fleecy backing on it. I really love this combination of wax canvas with nylon. I think it works really, really well. And then for the lining, I have a water resistant canvas. Because I'm using all this material, I don't have to add any sort of woven interfacing to anything, which again is why I like using all this. And all this material is domestic machine friendly as well. So you're gonna need at least a 19-inch long piece of zipper tape and a zipper pull to go with it. I have a bag tag, and then I also have a small cut of Decoville Heavy. This is for the base of the bag. I would say this is optional if you want more of a squishy bag. You don't have to add the Decoville Heavy, but it does help keep the base structured when you're finished. Okay, not a whole lot of extra stuff to use today. Clips as always. Double-sided tape is always helpful. There's not a whole lot of spots here that really require it. Top thread, as always, I'm using my Tex 45 weight thread in color Fairy Floss. This is from Wizardry Stitchery. And the bobbin, I'm using a Mara 100 weight thread. Another great option is that Gutermann polyester thread from Joann's. My needle of choice is a Microtex 8012. That seems to have been fine working with the material I've been working with. An air erasing marker and a silver ink pen, a stiletto and seam ripper combo, a lighter just to clean up any little bits of threads, a 1" by 6" ruler as always. Okay, I don't even know if you can see this. Looking at the pattern pieces, you're gonna have two cuts of pattern piece A. Now these are big pieces. I have to raise up my camera. But you see when they come together, there we go, they're gonna make a giant rectangle just like that. So make sure after you cut it out that they do come together and make this shape, okay? Neither of these have interfacing on them or anything like that. Next up, you're gonna have two large cuts for your lining panel, and then you're gonna have one smaller cut here. This is gonna be for the handle for the side of the bag. So this can be any of the material really, exterior or lining. So one cut of that as well. So take both of your exterior panels and lay them out like I showed you just a second ago, where they are both right side up, and they are forming one large rectangle when you go along the diagonal like that. And you're gonna flip these so that they are right sides together, lining up that long diagonal edge. And you do want a little bit of a triangle overhang on the sides, about 1/4 inch. So you can see it's called a dog ear normally, and it overhangs about 1/4 inch. And grab some clips and clip along this long edge. I'm interested to see how big this size is because the small is a pretty dainty size, but the panels weren't that tiny when I was sewing it together. So I wonder if this will still be big or if it'll be pretty small. So now we're going to sew along this long edge here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Once you have these sewn together, press them open so that the seam is going behind one side. I actually like the seam to go behind the wax canvas side, just because wax canvas is very easy to press flat with my fingers. I don't have to worry that it's not going to be straight. So I'm just going to go along pressing this. If you're using a quilt cotton or anything, you can go ahead and press it with an iron. There we go. And now I'm just going to top stitch right along the side, whichever side has the seam behind it. That's the side you top stitch. Just do that at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have this sewn together, fold this in half so that the short edges are coming together. We want to mark the midpoint along the long edges, and this needs to be marked in a way that you will definitely be able to see it later. So I don't suggest using an air erasing marker because by the time you get to that point, it might have disappeared. So I'm going to use scissors to just cut a little triangle right at the midpoint along the long edges. Okay, now you're going to rotate this, and it's not all going to be in the shot because it's just too big. And we're going to work on one short edge at a time. So right now I'm working on what would be considered the back of the bag. This is the back side of the bag. So if you have a preference on your material, think about that. We're going to take our zipper and we're going to lay it right side down. And when it closes, the zipper is going to close to the right. So I have my zipper full all the way here on the left, just hanging out. And I'm going to line up my zipper tape on the top edge here. And I'm just going to clip these together. So the zipper is right side down. The material is right side up. Zipper closes towards the right, but because my zipper tape is so long, it's able to just kind of hang out over there and I don't have to worry about accidentally hitting the zipper. So now let's just baste along this edge here at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now with the zipper wrong side up, material right side up, grab your lining and lay your lining right side down and line it up along that zipper and making sure the side edges line up with the side edges of the exterior. And now we're going to sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Once that's sewn in place, flip your lining up and you can press it with an iron or finger press it. And then rotate it so it's wrong sides together with the exterior. And then press along that edge with the zipper on the exterior side. There we go. And now we want to take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to top stitch right along the top of the material by the zipper at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so you have the back attached to the zipper. We're going to repeat that with the other side. So with this material right side up, take the bottom unsewn edge of your exterior and pull it up right sides together with the zipper. Make sure it's lined up with the side so it's not twisted or anything, and clip to that other edge of your zipper tape. And now let's baste along that clipped edge at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have that exterior side basted, let's flip this over so we're looking at the wrong side of the zipper tape. Grab your remaining lining panel and lay it right side down. And then just add this to that same edge of your zipper tape, making sure you're matching up the sides of the material. All right, once you have that clipped in place, let's just sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could do a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I think on the other side I was closer to a 3/8 inch seam allowance by mistake. That's okay. Just if whatever you sewed the other side of the zipper on, make sure you repeat that on this side and then backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, now with the zipper pull as close as you can get it to the end, so this is the part that has to stay closed all the time. I like to put a clip there. What we want to do is open up this zipper tape. So we're just going to pull it apart. Because in order to top stitch this, we need the zipper open, but we don't want to lose our zipper pull. And you can always add the zipper pull on after all this if you prefer. I'm just going to open this up and sew. Okay, so just focusing on the edge I just sewed, I'm going to press the lining away from the zipper, and then I'm going to press both materials wrong sides together. I'm going to line up the sides to make sure it doesn't get twisted and just add a clip just between the two pieces of fabric that I'm focused on. Now let's flip this around. Now we want to take this to the sewing machine and top stitch right along this edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you have material that you can easily press, you might want to do that. That'll make it easier. Otherwise, just be aware and do your best to get as straight a top stitching as possible. All right, the zipper is attached. You can move that zipper pull more towards the center if you'd like now. And now let's pull both the lining panels so that they are right sides together and the exterior is over here on its own. Line up the long edge of your lining panels and just use some clips to clip them together. And then centered along this long edge, mark a 5.5-inch opening, and this is for the large size. If you're doing the small size, it's smaller. But 5.5-inch opening right here, and we're gonna sew along this bottom edge, but we're not gonna sew between those two marks. We're gonna sew at a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the edges and also backstitch at those marks. Okay, go ahead and set this giant piece to the side for just a moment. Next, grab your grab handle, and we're going to fold this in half. And I'm using wax canvas, so I can just easily fold this. Otherwise, you might want to use a marking tool and some double-sided tape or an iron, depending on your material. If you're using the nylon, use a marking tool and double-sided tape. If you're using quilt cotton, use an iron. If you're using wax canvas, just use your fingers. Okay, once you have the midpoint marked on the wrong side of the material, you're going to mark 1 inch in from each long edge. And if you're using wax canvas, you can actually just use a stiletto for this. And then you're going to take the raw long edge and fold it back, wrong sides together, to meet that 1-inch line you just marked, and press that in place. And then once you have those long edges pressed in place, take that folded edge and fold it back, wrong sides together, to meet the midpoint mark. So do this for both sides. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and you're going to top stitch along both the inner folded edges and also the outer edges, all at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. A cute little handle. I think it's so simple, but it's really, really cute. And I love working with wax canvas. Working with wax canvas almost feels like playing. It doesn't even feel like working. Okay, so now grab your exterior here. And if you haven't already trimmed down your zipper tape, go ahead and do that so that it's the same width as your panels. And now what we want to do is we want to make sure that these zippers will stay closed. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. And I'm going to move all the material out of the way while I sew over the ending part of our zipper tape over here. And then for the open part, I'm going to do the same thing. If it's easier for you to turn this out right side so you can see it, you can do that. Otherwise, you can just pull the zipper close to the ending, not all the way. And you can kind of push those teeth together just so you see where it's supposed to go. And then just top stitch over the end of your zipper to hold these together so it doesn't open up anymore. Okay, push that zipper pull so it's in the middle of the bag. And now with all your material wrong side out, take your exterior and your lining and separate them. So the exterior is on one side, the lining's on the other side. And we want to match everything up. So now take the center mark you made on your exterior and pull that up to line up with the coils on your zipper tape and clip together. And then, it takes a little bit of manipulation here because it's so big. Take your lining and the seam on the bottom of your lining, that is the midpoint for the lining. Bring that to the back side of the zipper tape and line this up. So the midpoint on the exterior, the zipper teeth, and the seam on the lining are all coming together in the same spot, just like this. Now you can kind of put your fingers in and just tug along this edge to straighten it out. Just make sure all the edges come together along one nice line and clip together. We're clipping the lining and the exterior, everything together. Do the same thing on the other side, so you see you're going to have to flatten this out, just like that. So the midpoint mark lines up with the zipper teeth, with the right side of the zipper teeth, clip together, and then the lining seam comes down to line up with the back of the zipper teeth. All right, once you have it all clipped together, this is what it should look like. If you want to add some clips along the folded edges as well, just to flatten it out, make it easier to work with, you can do that. We're not sewing it like this or anything. We're just going to prep it some more, but we want everything to line up to the best of our ability. Okay, once you have it nice and flat, you're going to make some boxed corners. So we're going to focus on the corners, and the size of these depends on the size you're making, the small or large. And look at the size. It's not a square, okay? It is a rectangle, and one edge is longer than the other. So you need to pay attention to that. So when you're marking this, the longer edge is going to run parallel to your zipper. So here's your zipper. So the longer edges of each rectangle should be these two and these two. The shorter edges are going vertically. The longer edges are going horizontally, okay? So make sure you do that, because if you mix it around, it might get a little wonky in the end, which could be cute, but let's not do that. Okay, remember, the exterior and the lining are all clipped together. So as we cut these out, we're cutting exterior and lining material. So we're just going to cut right along those boxes that we just drew on all 4 corners. Okay, once you have these cut out, keep everything clipped here. Okay, just leave that for a moment. Grab one of these pieces here, anything, it could be any of these materials. Just grab one of them and we're gonna cut it down and make it the little tab for the end of the zipper. I'm gonna use the wax canvas because it's, again, just the easiest thing to use. So no matter what size bag you're making, you will have enough from any of these scraps to make your zipper tab. So just cut it down per the pattern. And then on the wrong side of this, you can mark a midpoint. I'm using wax canvas, so I can just fold this to mark that midpoint. This is gonna be along the long edges. And then fold the raw edges back, wrong sides together to meet that middle line you just marked. There we go. So you should have something that looks just like this. Now take this to the sewing machine and just top stitch along all 4 edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have this top stitch, just fold this in half so the short edges come together, wrong sides together. You can use a clip if it helps to hold it in place. So now looking at your zipper, find which side is going to stay closed when the zipper's closed. So this one right here, it always closes. This part here will never be open, it's always closed. So you're going to take this zipper tab here and you're going to insert it till the fold goes into the bag and it's between the 2 exterior pieces. So it's not in the lining part, it's between the bottom of the exterior and the zipper. And just center it right over that zipper tape and then use your clips to clip it all back together. Again, all the lining and the exterior all back together. There we go. So now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew through these side edges, the left and right. So these are the raw edges. The other top and bottom edges here are folded edges. We're not worried about those. Just the raw edges. Remember, the exterior and lining are all clipped together. Everything's clipped together. So sew along these edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and then do a second row of stitching at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to really hold it all in place. All right, and I forgot to do this earlier, but if you cut down your zipper tape, you do want to make sure you melt down the edges of your zipper tape so it doesn't fray out and ruin your bag later. Okay, the next thing we want to do is mark some corners. So you see how we have these folded corners here? We need to mark those. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to clip right along the corners, and I'm doing this for the exterior and the lining. We're going to need to be able to see these when we're working in the next step. So clipping it with scissors is, for me, just the easiest thing to do. If you don't want to do that, you can mark it with a marking pen. All right, let's remove these clips because we don't want to hold it all together. Now it's going to get a little tricky. So we're going to be focusing on the side that does not have the zipper tab. So as you can see, the zipper tab's right here. So we're going to work on this side over here and we're going to attach the handle. This threw me for a minute. I got very confused when I originally did this, but now I got it. Now I know what I'm doing, I think. So we're going to open this up just like this. And when you open up the side, you have this nice longer edge, you see, that has that midpoint mark that we were just working on. You're going to take your grab handle and you're going to slide it in so that it's right sides together with this panel right here, and use that center stitching that you did right here where the 2 folds come together. Use that as your midpoint mark and line it up with that midpoint right there that you just cut. And then use some clips here to hold these together. There we go. Okay, so now carefully moving everything out of the way. This is a little tricky, but just don't worry about this mess. What we want to do right now is we just want to baste down this edge of the grab handle where we clipped. Just baste it down at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now it's getting a little confusing. So we basted that down, still working on the same side. So right across from where we basted it is this seam here that has the zipper in it. So follow that seam until you get to the other opening of the exterior side. Keeping that grab handle nice and flat, which shouldn't be a problem. You're going to pull it through to this opening, and we're going to attach it to the other piece right here where it has that midpoint mark, and just center it and clip right sides together. And now, just like we did before, we're going to flip it down and everything's out of the way, and we're just going to baste right along this clipped edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so the grab handle is now stitched in there. We don't have to worry about it. We have our zipper tab. So now we just have to box these corners. So this might be a little tricky. My advice is just do 1 corner at a time and don't worry about the rest. So let's start with one of these exterior corners here. One where we just added the handle. And we're going to bring the seam on the side up to the midpoint that we marked in the midpoint of our handle and clip these together. And as you do this, the corners of those boxed corners should come together right on the edges. So now you see I have this lining over here. I need to include that. So we're gonna spread that lining out a little bit, and we're going to get that midpoint mark on the lining that we made and unclip. If the lining got folded in the clip like mine did, just unclip it because we need the lining to spread open. There we go. And we're gonna wrap the lining around so that it can get in line with the clipped edge we're working on. So that midpoint mark on the lining is gonna come line up with the seam that's over on the other side. That's already lined up with the exterior, there we go. And then the corners of this lining edge are gonna match up with the corners of the exterior edge. And just keep kind of pulling everything to get it to straighten out as much as possible. It does feel a little bit like wrestling, and the rest of the bag looks a hot mess, but we don't care. We're not worried about the rest of the bag right now. We're just worried about this one edge. And get it as straight as you can. All right, once you have the lining and the exterior all clipped together, centered, looking good, we're gonna sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. If you have thicker material, do a second row of stitching at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we just have to do that for all the other corners, which I know it might be like, what? You can do it. So I'm gonna go to the next corner. I'm just gonna repeat this. So this is the other corner that has the grab handle. And again, working on the exterior first, I'm just gonna bring the midpoint of that exterior to meet the seam, so it's centered. And then the corners should come out to the very edges of the straight line. And then I'm going to work on opening up the lining here and open it up at the seam, which is already matched up with the exterior. And then bring that midpoint mark that's cut for me, or maybe just marked for you, bring that up to meet up with the seam and the midpoint on the exterior, and clip it along those same edges, getting a nice straight line with the exterior. I'm gonna include it in the clips on the other side as well. All right, and it's easier too if you clip on the sides where the folds are. And now we're just gonna once again sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a second row at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, so there's one side done. Now we're gonna work on the other side. I don't know why, I just always like to start with the exterior. I feel like it's easier maybe, I don't know. And every time you're just smushing everything else out of the way. We don't care about the rest of the bag right now. We don't have the bandwidth for that. We can only focus on one thing at a time, and right now it's this one corner. All right, once again, go make your stitches on this edge. I like to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then also an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All righty, last corner. Last corner. And it might be the hardest, well, it might be the hardest to find. Where is it? There it is. It's kind of the hardest because everything's already pushed around, but it's also easier because you don't have to worry about moving anything around. But this procedure right here is kind of why I wouldn't use vinyl for this project, because I feel like this would be very difficult to do with a vinyl material. You know what I mean? You need, I like material that's pretty loosey-goosey, because then I can just really pull it and fold it however I need it. This would be a challenge with vinyl. But if you make it with vinyl, let me know. I bet it looks amazing. But I think this is perfect. This wax canvas is perfect for this project. Same with this, any sort of a nylon material or water resistant canvas, waterproof canvas. All that material is great for this. All right, last edge is clipped together. It is a bit of a fight, but it's there. So once again, 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All righty, we did it, guys. Yay! It's really not that bad. Just don't use thick material. Don't use anything too stiff. So now reach in and just open up that zipper all the way if you haven't already. It probably naturally opened up most of the way. And let's turn this out through that hole in the lining. And I'm just gonna turn this so it's exterior side out, because I wanna see it. And the corners are easiest to poke out with your hand in the lining, not in the hole in the lining, but actually in the lining, because the lining and the exterior are attached together, so it's easier to poke those corners out just from the inside of the bag. Oh my gosh, this is so cute. Look at how stinking cute and structured this bag is. I love it so much. It's so stinking cute. One thing I did realize is I forgot to attach my bag tag. So this is why it's always good to also have some woven bag tags with your business on it, because that way if you forget, like I did, you can always just attach it in the lining, which is what I'm gonna do. But first, before we close the lining, let's grab our stabilizer cut here, and we're not gonna fuse it on or anything. We're just gonna fold it and put it into the hole in that lining and just lay it flat on the bottom of your bag. There we go. And once it's nice and flat in there, you see it just offers a little bit of extra support. Nothing too wild. And it can move around a little bit if you're really aggressive with it. So if you don't want to add that, because I feel like if you were to crumple this up and put it in a suitcase and then uncrumple it, that stabilizer could like come up to the side or something. You'll be trying to figure out how to push it down without having access to the inside here. So maybe if you're not interested in having a firm base, you can leave it out. But now what we want to do is lift up this hole in the lining, and I'm just going to insert my fingers into the corners here, and it naturally kind of folds down those raw edges, and I'm going to clip along this folded opening. And then I'll take my woven bag tag here, and I'm just going to slide it right in the opening so it's sticking out just a bit. And now we're going to go to the sewing machine and just top stitch along this opening at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I do suggest back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, so that's going to kind of mess it up. So you just have to tuck it back in and then find that stabilizer and try to get it back where it belongs. Okay, so that's actually a pretty good size bag. Let's do a little size comparison. So yeah, here's the small and here's the large. There's a pretty big difference between the small and large. So I like that. I like when there's a generous difference. And I'm just loving the combination of the nylon and the wax canvas. I think that looks so good. So I hope you love making these as much as I do. These are so fun. All right. Look how stinking cute this is. I know, I went basic. I don't normally go basic. I went basic, but bam, not on the lining. I decided to put my fun on the lining, but I decided to keep the exterior. I mean, I don't know. Some of you guys are going to be like, Jessica, that is hot, hot pink. You calling that basic? I am. Because for me, this is pretty basic. This is pretty neutral for me, okay? But this is so cute, and it was so easy. And so here's the large, here's the small next to each other. You see, there is a significant size difference. So I would not say, like, this is a small and a medium. This is a small, this is a large for sure. I love the size difference in these. And I think that like this would be perfect for travel. You can make a few of these for different family members. And especially if you use like a water resistant canvas and material that can be wet, you could put like bathing suits and stuff in there. And then if you go to the pool, go to the water park, you can put wet bathing suits in there, let it dry out. I love these so, so much. They're so useful and they're so easy to sew together. And you end up making so many of them. And again, this is one of those items that you gift it to anyone, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love it and they're gonna use it all the time. And so it's a go-to gift for me. A boxy bag is always a go-to gift. So I hope you enjoyed sewing with me today. If you make this, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what kind of material you're using. You guys know I'm loving the wax canvas and the nylon combo lately. It's my favorite. It's like secret sauce for me. It's just my absolute favorite combination of materials. If you try that and you haven't yet, let me know what you think. How do you like it? Do you love it as much as I do? I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. I hope that you are inspired to go make something and have a lot of fun with these patterns. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure you click subscribe down below. Also, make sure you hit that little bell, the little notification bell. That's going to make sure you're notified every single time we have a new video or when we go live. For even more fun content from OklaRoots, make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. We do daily stories over there, which include unboxing, talks about books, other little mini tutorials, lots and lots of discussion over all kinds of things going on. You can also find us on TikTok and also on Reels for even more fun, kind of more random content. And if you really want to dive in for some behind the scenes content, free gifts, access to shop items before anybody else, and influence on upcoming videos, make sure you go check out OklaRoots over on Patreon. We have a lot going on over there and it's a fun place to hang out and you are directly supporting the OklaRoots YouTube channel. These videos could not be possible without the help of my patrons. So thank you so, so much to everybody over there. Thank you again for watching today's tutorial. I hope you enjoy the videos. Go make something.